Most people who have purchased Apple's iPhone X seem to love it at this point, but sales are expected to taper off in a big way during the next 2 quarters. Rather than an issue with demand, some analysts believe the high cost of the iPhone X is responsible for sales that are slowing much sooner than expected. On top of that, some users find the iPhone X's display too small. Despite a diagonal length that is 3/10 of an inch larger than the iPhone 8 Plus display, the iPhone X screen is actually smaller overall because of its narrow aspect ratio. This year, Apple is expected to plug these 2 possible holes with 2 additional iPhone X successors beyond the next generation 5.8-inch OLED iPhone model. According to multiple reports from KGI Securities analyst Ming-Chi Kuo, the world's most accurate Apple insider, Apple will also launch 2 larger iPhones that share the same design and features. One will be a 6.5-inch OLED iPhone X Plus, while the second is expected to be a 6.1-inch LCD iPhone model priced below the other 2. From 2007 all the way through to the iPhone 5S release in 2013, Apple launched 1 new flagship iPhone each year. New iPhone releases are still quite an ordeal, but back then they were epic affairs that tens of millions of Apple fans around the world would look forward to each year. Then, leading up to 2014's launch, Apple seemingly saw that the magic was fading a bit, but it had been holding on to the perfect weapon against waning interest. The company would release not 1 but 2 new iPhone models with the large displays users had been clamoring for. The iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus marked the start of a new cycle where Apple would release 2 new different flagship iPhone models each year. One would be on the smaller side for users who like phones to be manageable with one hand, and the second new iPhone would be a phablet with a much larger display. In 2018, it appears as though Apple plans to switch things up yet again with not 1, not 2, but 3 brand new flagship iPhone models set to be released this coming September. On Wednesday, a new report backs up Kuo's claim that Apple is prepping 3 different flagship iPhone models that will debut later this year. The investor this morning relays a Korean-language report from MT News stating that Apple will release 3 different iPhone X successors in 2018, and all 3 will have Apple's new Face ID feature that was first introduced on the iPhone X. The complex components in Apple's true-depth camera and sensor array that enables Face ID are believed to have been the cause of last year's delayed release. In order to help ensure this year's new iPhones aren't delayed as well, Apple has reportedly secured 2 additional suppliers for its 3D sensing modules. ET News reports that LG Innotek will remain Apple's main supplier, but 2 different Chinese component makers have also been added to Apple's supply chain. All 3 new flagship iPhone models are expected to be released this coming September. A 4th new iPhone may launch earlier in the year as an entry-level replacement for the iPhone SE. The iPhone X is an amazing phone. Will it get even better with the rumored iPhone X Plus? The X is such a radical departure, in a good way, from any iPhone I've ever owned that it would be hard to go back to the 7 Plus or 8 Plus. That said, the most obvious shortcoming right now is that there is only 1 screen size for the X. What we think we know a second larger model, among a trio of phones Apple is expected to introduce later this year, the 6.5-inch iPhone X Plus, if reports are accurate, is exactly what Apple should do. If you've been using iPhone Plus models over the past few years, as I have, it doesn't take long to realize that the smaller 5.5-inch display on the 7 Plus or 8 Plus is actually bigger, wider, than the X's 5.8-inch display. This becomes especially apparent when watching videos. See this from Mobile Tech Review at the 145 mark and you'll see what I mean. The fact is, the X is really just an iPhone 8 stretched vertically. See Apple's Human Interface Guidelines. So, if the X Plus is anything like the concept from Martin Hayek, it would be Apple's first truly massively big screen smartphone. Bigger is better is often a truism. Ask a Galaxy Note user for smartphone displays. For me, I would happily ditch my iPad Pro for a massive screen iPhone. One of the reasons the tablet market has fizzled is that consumers are realizing that an iPad and tablets in general are largely redundant. I understand that's not the case for everyone. For lots of the iPhone faithful, the chassis size to screen ratio on the iPhone X is as close to perfection as you can get. That's one of the things that makes the X so good. I recognize that but still look forward to a larger version. The iPhone X after 3 months and expected improvements. Face ID is not perfect and in need of a Touch ID, aka home button, backup. As I've said before, and I may be in the minority, Face ID on the iPhone X is different than facial recognition on a laptop. The latter, for me, is always instantaneous. On the HP Spectre 13, I grab the laptop, put it on my lap, or desk, and I'm in. Smartphones are often situated at an angle and sometimes an arm's length distance from your face. I prefer to keep my phone on the desk where it is, in many cases, and would prefer not to pick it up every time to ID my face. That seems like a trivial nitpicky thing until you have to do that many times over the course of the day. But Apple will undoubtedly improve Face ID with time. Besides, the X is too good of a phone for that to spoil the fun of using it. Yes, the iPhone X has its share of issues like any phone, but I really don't have any other major complaints about the phone, which is testimony to its greatness.